It is Friday afternoon and I'm headed out to the horse sale again. My latest rehab pony went to her new home a few weeks ago, so I am going to be looking for a new horse today. If you're new to my channel, these horse auctions are a little bit different than some of the ones you might have seen before. Each horse is ran through the ring loose with no halter, nobody leads them through, nobody rides them through, so all the information that you get on the horse is what you see before the sale. This can be a tricky way to buy a horse if you don't have very much knowledge, but I like taking you guys along because there's always something to learn. This sale has hundreds of horses every month. I want to say this month there's probably about 350 loose that will go through. This first pen that I'm looking at is a bunch of younger horses. They're probably yearlings and 2-year-olds. This sorrel mare is probably a 3 or 4-year-old. She is super cute. I'm gonna put her on my list, but I think she might go for a little bit more money than I'm wanting to spend today. I gave myself a budget of $1,000, which is a lot more than I usually spend. Usually I can find a pretty good horse for around $500 at this sale. This July sale has a lot more private buyers attend looking for summer projects, so I think these colts are gonna get snatched up. Here are a few registered horses. I noticed the brand on this buckskin. They breed really nice rodeo horses, so she'll probably be expensive. Typically the halflingers, especially the registered ones, are gonna be out of my budget, so I'm not gonna look too close at him today. At this sale, they have the studs in separate pens, so I went to go check out what they had. This one was super cute, but he was foundered, so I had to pass on him. It looked like they had 7 or 8 studs, so a little bit more than they usually have. This guy was not interested in coming over. This guy coming up, he reminded me a lot of the stud I bought from this sale last year. I actually think it was the July sale too when I bought him. He has the same big pretty cheeks that this horse has. The black stud came over and tried to make a little bit of trouble, but this guy seemed super chill. He didn't really care too much. When I get a stud from this sale, I do not keep them a stud. I geld them as soon as possible. This guy had pretty long feet, which not really a big deal, but I did notice after hanging out with him for a while that he did have a spot on his eye. If this is old, it's probably not a big deal, but it could be new and it might need to be treated with antibiotics a couple times a day, and that can be really time consuming. He was a really nice looking horse, so I did put him on my list, but he's not going to be at the top of my list for this sale. I got really excited when I saw this cute little meatball at the end.
Hey little brownie, you're cute. You're cute as all get out. Look how cute you are.
As I was looking around for his tag, I realized he didn't have one, so he probably belonged to one of the pen riders and was just there resting after a long day's work. That was kind of a bummer because he was super cute. These pens are empty, but they usually keep one pen full close to where the horses are dropped off, and then they move them to the back of the auction yard. I'm gonna go see the newest pen of horses that have been dropped off and see how quiet they are, and maybe I'll check those out. They looked like they were still getting to know each other, so I didn't want to hop in there and kind of cruise around. There are also a bunch of traders in there, so it's hard for me to evaluate the horses when there's traders riding them. I just really didn't feel like getting trampled. I went in the pen just to walk around for a little bit to see if I saw anything that caught my eye. I didn't see anything in the pen of grade horses, but I noticed they had a separate pen of registered horses that I wanted to go check out. At this sale, they sell the grade horses first and the registered horses second, so all the pens are either going to be just grade horses or just registered horses. This mare looked like she had some insulin resistance. She was also really sore on her front feet. She had kind of a crusty neck and her tail head was a little bit blubbery, so those are some signs that she might be metabolic. You can see she's pointing her one foot forward, so that foot really hurts her. I didn't want to make her walk around very much because she's pretty obviously lame. I took down her number and put her on my list. With a diet change and some remedial shoeing, she would probably be fine. She doesn't really look like a quarter horse to me, so I'll be interested to see how she's bred. I came a little bit too late today to see the papers, so I'll have to look tomorrow right before the sale starts. There was one more horse in this pen that I was really interested in seeing. I saw her advertised before the sale and she was supposed to have a little bit of a bucking problem. She is really cute, but I did notice right off the bat that her eye was swollen shut. She was really squeezing it closed, so I bet it just got poked after she got dropped off in one of the pens when they were moving her around. Even a little tiny scratch on their eye requires some pretty extensive vet care for a number of days, so I'm going to keep that in mind while I'm looking at her. She is not very old. Um,
That's the baby.
I'm not really worried about her behavioral problem. I'm fine training a horse or figuring out why they might be bucking. I did notice when I checked to see if she had wolf teeth that someone had really overfloated her teeth. So when they do their teeth, they usually grind down the sharp points, but hers were smooth. So someone had been really liberal with the use of the float. She's super cute. I'm gonna put her on my list, but I can't remember how she was bred, so that'll be a big determining factor in how much she goes for. But since she's pre-advertised with the bucking problem and now her eye is swollen shut, it might make her pretty cheap. I only saw one mama and baby pair, and this pair looked really nice. The baby was super stout and really healthy looking, and the mama was relatively friendly. I was kind of wondering whether or not the baby was a half draft because it was huge and it didn't look like it was super old. So I think these guys will sell for a decent price. I'm gonna go ahead and head back to the horses that are way in the back of the yard, and they would have been here for the longest. It looks like they're redoing some of the footing. It's just concrete with little ridges in it so it's not slippery when it's wet. It's the perfect footing to see the horses trot down when they get brought up to the sale ring. After the loose horses sell, they do have a catalog portion of this auction, so these are just some of the roping steers that they use to preview the horses on. I noticed when I was walking to the back pens that they had some gates open, so they were getting ready to run some of the new horses back here into these back pens. You do have to be really careful when you're back here looking at the horses. You don't want to get in anybody's way, and you definitely don't want to get trampled by a herd of horses. I've probably only looked at about 50 horses so far, so most of the horses that will be for sale tomorrow are back in these back pens. And these horses do have access to fresh water and hay. The bugs tonight were really bad. You can see all the horses swishing their tails. I saw a really cute little appy. I'm not sure. I mean, it could be like a varnish roan, but I think it's an Appaloosa. A lot of these horses that I'm seeing are gonna sell for more than my budget, so I'm not gonna look too closely at them. If I see one I really like, I might write it down just in case nobody else sees it and it goes super cheap. But I noticed this tall, pretty girl right off the bat. She was kind of wandering around and didn't know how to act around the rest of the horses, and she is almost certainly a thoroughbred. I almost bought a thoroughbred at the last sale, and I ended up kind of following her after the sale. She ended up in a kill pen and was available for a limited time, and one of her old owners saw her and ended up buying her, so that was really nice to see because I was kind of bummed I didn't buy her. There's a few horses in this pen that were being kind of brats, so I was trying to chase them away so this mare wasn't getting frightened and I could catch her and take a closer look at her. She is in a pen with a bunch of other grade horses, so she might not have her papers with her. So I'm going to check and see if I can find a tattoo. They did recently stop tattooing thoroughbreds and they're now using microchips instead. So she might not have a tattoo, but she might still be a thoroughbred. So yeah, she didn't have a tattoo, but she is super young. So I think she's probably about 3 years old. And if she is a thoroughbred and she's 3, she would have a microchip in. I saw some really inexpensive microchip scanners on Amazon that I might buy and test out just to have with me at the sale in case a horse like her comes up in the future. I was having a little bit of trouble looking at the horses I wanted to today because all of the more aggressive horses wanted me to catch them like this guy, and I really wanted to kind of check out the ones that were shy and hanging off by themselves. This mule was really interested in what I was doing. There were a lot of mules at this sale, and I'm thinking maybe that in the future I might get another one, but I'd probably want to bring along someone who knows a little bit more about mules if I ever decide to add one to my herd. But this trip I'm really looking for a rehab project. I decided to try and see if I could feel any scar tissue where this girl might have her microchip implanted, but I didn't feel anything. She was being super sweet and kind as long as the horses were staying away from her. She has a really good example of baby tooth. Those two incisors on the corner are baby teeth, and then those front ones are adult teeth. She had pretty good looking feet. One of them looked a little bit off, so I was trying to get her to let me check it out. She was being a little bit lazy about it, but it gave me the opportunity to check her tendons and her lower leg. Her foot actually looked pretty normal. I did notice that she has a pretty big splint there, which is not a big deal to me. I'm gonna put her on my list because I think she might get overlooked, but I'm gonna keep searching for horses that might need a soft place to land.
Hey, buddy.
This Appaloosa was so chill. I thought he might not be able to see me, but he did. He's just a pretty calm horse. I think he'll probably be more than I'm wanting to spend. When I'm looking for horses, I like to kind of get a bird's eye view of everyone in the pen and kind of see how they're acting among the other horses. There's that thoroughbred. She made friends with that big mule. He was kind of cool. I think he's going to go for quite a bit of money. I recognize the brand that's on him, and I think a lot of people will too. The little buckskin on the right is a Norwegian fjord. I don't see a lot of them at the sales, but when they do come through, they're kind of expensive because they're a little bit of an oddity, and he was being kind of a brat, so I didn't really like his temperament anyway. There seem to be a lot more registered horses at this sale than there usually are. I'm not really sure why that is, but they all looked really healthy and none of them had any really big problems, so that was nice to see, but it didn't make my task of finding one that needed help easier. You can see from this view how many horses I have left to go through. And there were a bunch of people in the back. Some people were riding them, testing them out. It's a little bit of a free-for-all back in the back. I don't usually ride any of the horses. Anything that rides good enough for me to want to test out is going to be above my price range, so I don't even bother. This horse was being super weird. It actually ran right into me, didn't even notice I was there, didn't even acknowledge I was around. I'm pretty sure that it was drugged. A lot of people don't realize that there are some long-acting sedatives that horses can get that can last for 30 or more days, so that's just something to keep in mind when you're buying a horse that may have been traded around a lot. It was like 90 degrees out, so the horse could have just been dehydrated, but it did have a few signs of a horse that was under the influence of some kind of drug. I did notice that there were a lot of private buyers at this sale, which was really nice to see. I also talked to a few people who said they saw a video on YouTube and decided to come to the sale and buy some horses. The first video I did of this horse sale has something crazy like 130,000 views right now, so it's really cool that people are seeing it and driving out to the sale to look at and buy some of these horses. This sale is open to the public, so anybody can come and buy a horse. There are some rules about who they let back in the pens for safety and insurance reasons, but there's always a ton of people in the back that if you're standing on the fence, they can answer questions for you if you see a horse that you want to buy. This is another pen of registered horses, and there's one gray horse that really caught my eye. He is a really nice looking horse. He's really well built. He's obviously well fed. He has really nice straight legs, good conformation. He seemed like a pretty chill horse. If a horse is eating, I usually don't chase them away to look at them. A lot of people will, but I mean, I'll just let him hang out and eat. I can always look at him tomorrow morning and get a better view of him. I'm gonna put him on my list, but I'm almost certain he'll sell for big bucks. I noticed this little buckskin horse. She looked a little bit older and she was a little on the thin side, so I decided to get a closer look at her. It was really hard for me to tell whether or not she was struggling to move because she was hungry or tired or what her deal was, so I was going to try and get her by herself. She's just moving like she doesn't have very much energy right now. She is a little on the thin side, so I want to be able to check her teeth to see if maybe that's the reason why she's not a normal weight. I did notice she was pretty sore when I was catching her. I also noticed she had some hollowing above her eyes, which usually happens when horses are older or when they're very thin. But when I checked her teeth, it was pretty obvious she was a baby. She hasn't lost her first set of incisors, so these are all baby teeth. A lot of people in Montana will keep their young horses on giant pastures, like several thousand acres. So if she can't move as well as the other horses, she might spend all of her time trying to keep up with them, and she might not have enough time to actually graze. I'm hoping that maybe she's just footsore from the spring grass, and that's the reason she's not able to get around as well as she should. But I'm going to investigate her probably one or two more times before the sale tomorrow, before I make a decision on her, because she might have something going on that I can't fix. I decided to turn her loose and kind of see how she moves around the pen on her own, so I can maybe get a better idea of what's going on with her. You can see right there she's pretty sore on that right front, so that's where I'm gonna investigate a little bit more. You can see from this view, I'll slow it down, but her feet on the front are not normal. They're both kind of tilted, and that could just be from bad farrier care because her legs are pretty straight. So I want to see if she'll let me pick up her feet so I can get a closer look at them. From the side, she does have really good conformation, so underneath her poor condition, she has a lot of good things going on for her. She is registered, so depending on how she's bred, someone might be willing to spend a lot of money despite how she looks. I spent some time watching her eat, and she seems to be able to eat fine, so I'm gonna go look at some more horses and then maybe come back to her in a while after she's had something to eat and try and get a closer look at her feet. A lot of the horses that are in these pens are probably going to get bought by traders or private parties. This paint was really pretty. A lot of the horses were getting annoyed. The bugs were getting worse and worse as the sun was going down, making it a little bit tricky to look at everybody. I saw that little buckskin walking around, so I got up on the fence to kind of see her moving. She just seems really stiff, and I can't tell if it's because she's malnourished or if she's got something going on with her bones. This mule was super friendly. Mules can sometimes be a little bit hard to read. This one was acting super tough, but she was all talk. I think she was just over all the other horses in the pen, pushing her around. When she figured out that I was going to be nice to her, her attitude changed a little bit. She was pretty nice. This sorrel horse was super kind. He followed me around for a little bit. I don't think that he's going to go within my price range. There was a super cute brown and white paint horse that I noticed, and then I saw he had some big scar tissue on his leg. I saw a few traders ride him, so I think he's probably gonna go for a decent price though. I think his leg was all superficial scar tissue. Maybe he got caught in a fence or something, but he seemed to get around really well. This gray one was super cute, pretty young, so it wasn't letting me come up to him. There were a bunch of like older horses, using type horses, that if you were looking to come to the sale to get a nice riding horse, a lot of them would probably fit the bill. There was a little yearling that I thought was super cute, but I just could not get close enough to him to check him out. He'll probably not go for very much money, but I don't really need a super young unhandled horse right now. This Palomino was super nice. He just kind of hung out by the water when all the other horses were running around. You can see that gray horse and the little bay were playing. They're both pretty young. I only have probably 60 more horses to go through, and I have a list of maybe 20 to 25 horses that I'll be interested in bidding on tomorrow if the price is right. I noticed this little mule had a pretty gnarly rope burn around his leg that I was trying to get a picture of, but he was just scooting around too fast. I think he was probably just more reactive. I decided to go back and check out this Palomino's teeth so I could get an idea of how old he was. He had probably had a ton of horse traders bridle him and handle him, and he was obviously over it, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. His feet were not super great, but they weren't horrible. I'm gonna put him on my list, but I think he too is gonna go for more than I'm wanting to spend. I am finding a ton of really nice horses that are gonna be for sale tomorrow, and I'm wondering what the prices are gonna be like. This sale is usually a little bit higher priced just because the time of year, and I feel like the quality of horses at this sale is a little bit higher than some other sales. I feel like private horses are a little bit overpriced right now, so if someone was looking for a good bargain, this would be the perfect sale to come to if you had the knowledge to pick out a good one. This mule was super cute. She was a little bit on the fat side, and you could tell that she had been ridden. She's got some saddle marks on her and some marks from the breeching. One of the nice things about coming to a sale like this is you get to see a lot of different horses that could have a lot of different things wrong with them. This horse had probably DSLD. It's a degenerative disease of the ligaments, so they'll get really lax, and you can see it pretty good in the suspensory ligament. So this guy's fetlocks are dropping pretty low. If it was a younger horse, there could be the possibility that it's from a nutrient deficiency, but this guy was pretty old. I saw another horse that looked like a thoroughbred, and this one did have a tattoo. I actually think this one is a racing quarter horse, so some quarter horses are tattooed if they're on the track. I will try and look it up to kind of see if I can figure out who it is. This one was in pretty rough shape. It is getting pretty late, and you can see all the tiny little bugs that there are around, so I'm kind of getting eaten alive at this point. I am almost done going through all the horses. I wanted to check out this mule again, but she wasn't interested.
Okay,
This is that little squirrely mule that had a rope burn around its leg. I always use a soft cotton rope when I'm starting my horses because a regular rope can burn pretty bad. You can see there, it's a pretty gnarly burn that probably doesn't feel great. I was able to go back and look at that little skinny buckskin and check out her feet. I had a hoof pick with me, so I spent some time really looking at that hoof, and it was a little bit clubfoot, but I feel like it was probably due to something that was going on higher up in her leg. I did a few little things to see if I could tell where her injury might have been, but I'm not 100% sure. I really didn't want to chase her around and see her trot, so I'm probably gonna have to wait until tomorrow when they run them up to the sale pen to see her move out to see how lame she actually is. I'm pretty sure after putting my hands on her that she has something going on with that right shoulder. It's probably an old injury, but it's not something that I'm going to be able to rehab. I probably shouldn't put her on my list, but I'm going to keep an eye out and see how much she goes for tomorrow. It was around 10 o'clock when I got done looking at all the horses. I usually get a hotel when I come to this sale, but I decided to save some money and sleep in my trailer, so I was able to get up bright and early and check out a few more horses. They usually keep all the tiny horses together. In this pen there was a mini horse, a pony, 2 donkeys, and there was a jack in there as well. The ponies I find at this sale usually need a lot of help, but this group looked really nice today, so I think they'll probably go for a decent price. I don't normally buy these kind of horses, but I wanted to take a look at them anyway. This little girl was so sweet. I do have a friend that I buy these little ponies for, so I wanted to take a look at her. That little Jack had a lot to say. He just was talking at everybody who went past him. This pony was super sweet. A lot of times the ponies that end up at the sale have either foundered or they're pretty wild or crazy, and this girl was just so sweet and snuggly. There's one pen of horses that I didn't look at last night because they were dropped off overnight. And this guy probably has Cushing's. He would probably do well if he got the right medication, so I'm gonna put him on my list. He's kind of in the same boat as that registered mare I saw yesterday. At this point I have a pretty good list going of horses I think that I can help if the price is right. They started moving the horses pretty early today, so I didn't have a lot of time to look at new horses. I checked out a few that I didn't really think were going to work for me, and then I went to go find that mare that had a spot on her eye to see if it looked better this morning. She seemed to be opening her eye a tiny bit more than she was last night, so she must have poked her eye right before I saw her last night. I did make her trot around to see if she was sound, and she was pretty sound, so I'm going to leave her on my list. This is one of the main reasons I like to come the night before. In the morning, the horses are a little bit more fractious. They're excited because they're moving around. This big group of horses is moving up to the sale ring, so I think it's time I better go get a number and get a seat. I'm running a little bit late, so I think I'm gonna miss the first couple horses being sold. I'm cutting it pretty close today, and as soon as I sit down, they start selling the first horse. The first couple horses through the ring sold for several $1,000s, so that was good. At this sale, the horses sell incredibly fast. This Palomino, this is the entire time it was in the ring. This is the whole amount of time that it took the horse to sell, and that was about 15 to 20 seconds. So these horses go through really fast. About 20% of these horses are going to fall within the slaughter price range. The amount of horses being exported for slaughter in the United States has gone down about 85% in the last 10 years. So it used to be around 150,000 a year, and now it's down to about 20,000 last year. If you're wanting to help a horse, I think the best way to do it is go directly to the sale and purchase one. I've seen some other channels on YouTube that go to horse auctions and purchase horses, and I noticed that they are well above slaughter range, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. If you're paying that much for a horse, you're not rescuing it, you're just simply buying it. It really annoys me when people ask for several $1,000s to rescue a horse from a trader or a kill pen when it's not actually going to be slaughtered. As you can see, there's a lot of really nice horses that come through the sale that could be purchased for a very reasonable price. Because this sale does have a large number of private buyers, a lot of the horses will sell for above slaughter price. The most inexpensive horses at this sale are going to be the younger ones that are probably less than 500 pounds and untrained. Like this horse was super cute. He was pretty fractious in the pen, but he wasn't super crazy. He would be the perfect horse for someone to come and buy if they needed a project and had a lot of time to spend with one. This horse isn't a Mustang, but he might be off of a reservation, which this sale gets in a lot. My little $25 horse, Scarlet, came from this sale and she's off a reservation. I got some really bad video of this little pony, and that's because I was bidding on him. I didn't want to pay $600 though, so I didn't end up bringing him home. I don't remember looking at this horse, and I'm kind of bummed because he went for a relatively decent price and he seemed super calm. This is that pony that has Cushing's probably, and I did bid on him, but he ended up going a little bit higher than I was willing to pay. He sold for $1,200, so hopefully somebody gets him on the meds that he needs. This is another young one that was pretty fractious. I still have Scarlet turned out in the area that I use for my wild horses, so I tried not to bid on any of the ones that were unhandled today. He sold for $250. Usually the ones that are a little bit cooler color will sell higher at this sale. This one was like a Grula gray color. It sold for $650. This was a really handsome Frisian cross gelding. I think he was pre-advertised, and I was a little bit surprised he didn't go for more money. He sold for $4,500. This coming up is that little young mule that had the rope burn around the fetlock. He sold for only $380. There were a bunch of using horses that sold around the $1,500 to $2,000 mark, and they were really nice horses. This is that Fjord that was kind of chasing everybody around, being a little bit of a brat, and I think that a rescue bought him. They ended up paying a lot of money for him. They paid $3,200 for him. This is that young thoroughbred that I looked at. She was definitely on my list, and the bidding started off real low, and I thought I was going to be able to get her for like $500, and then a few people must have noticed which horse it was, and the bidding escalated pretty quickly, so she sold for $1,700 and I stopped after $1,000. This is another fjord that was there. This one was foundered, not super bad, but she sold, I think, to the rescue as well for $1,500. This was a really pretty palomino. He looked a little bit older, and I remember when I looked at him earlier, he looked like he needed some maintenance, just regular old horse maintenance, because he wasn't sound. He sold for $1,200. This was another little wild one, and he was just kind of standing relaxed in the middle of the pen, pretty curious. I really had to hold myself back from bidding on this one because I think he would have been really easy to train. He sold for $150. This dapple gray, I was surprised didn't sell for more money, but he was pretty fractious, so I doubt that anybody was able to ride him before the sale, but I wouldn't be surprised if he actually does ride. This is one that I'm really disappointed in myself for not checking out closer before the sale. I saw him trot up to the sale ring, and he was a super cute moving mule, and he was really curious in the pen too, and I think he was a real bargain at $400. This is another nice prospect that sold for a very reasonable price, and they're going to start on the registered horses after him. If you've never been to an auction before, the auctioneer usually starts close to the price that they think the horse is gonna go for. So they started this horse at $1,000 and nobody was bidding. It was actually a horse that I really liked, and you'll see I kind of dropped my phone because he got down to $400 and I decided I needed to bid on him. He was only 4 years old and didn't have anything wrong with him. I think he just needed more training. He was bred really well, and I probably could have just bought him and sold him in a day or two for 2 or 3 times the price, but that is really not what I do. I like to buy the ones that actually need help. So I was out at $1,000 and he sold for $1,100. There are still 3 more horses to sell that are left on my list, so I have to stay focused and see if maybe one of those are going to sell in the price range that I set for myself. This is that really pretty registered halflinger, and he was, I think, a pretty good deal. Usually these guys sell for around $3,000, and this guy sold for $2,100. This was that foundered mare, and as you can see, as she's trotting around in this super soft footing, she is 100% sound, so she would have been fun to rehab. I bid up to $1,000 for her as well, but she sold again for $1,100. This is that mare that had a bucking problem with the eye that was swollen shut, and I didn't even get a chance to bid on her. They started her at $1,000 and she went up until she ultimately sold. So she sold for $2,900. She was bred really well, so that's not a surprise. This is that really nice looking gray gelding, and he did sell for $6,200. So I'm pretty good at picking the ones that sell for lots of money. The only horse that's left on my list now is that buckskin that was pretty sore, and I decided that I really didn't want to bid on her. Her lameness was too much, and I just didn't think I could fix her. So she was one of the last horses to go through the ring, and she did sell for $1,000 to a private buyer, so I felt okay about that. Even though I didn't buy anything at the sale, I didn't go home with an empty trailer. I picked up this sweet old girl that I'm transporting for a therapeutic riding center. It was nice to see so many private buyers at the sale, and even though I didn't get to come home with the horse, I feel like it was a successful trip. I like going to this horse sale because there's a lot of horses in one place. There are a lot of smaller auctions in Montana that I can visit. Let me know in the comments if that is something that you'd be interested in seeing. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.